Good morning and welcome to the official relaunch of the Bipartisan Congressional Pre-K and Child Care Caucus. My name is Sarah Rittling. I'm the Executive Director of the First 5 Years Fund, and I thank everyone joining us today, particularly our co-chairs and their staffs, Assistant Speaker Catherine Clark of Massachusetts, Congressman Joaquin Castro of Texas, Congressman Tom Cole of Oklahoma, and Congressman Rodney Davis of Illinois. Your leadership for convening today's kickoff event is really exciting for all of us. In just a few moments, we're going to hear from the co-chairs about the caucus and their thoughts on childcare and early learning, particularly on Capitol Hill. Then a bit later, we're going to hear from early learning providers and experts who are represented in Congress by many of our co-chairs, caucus co-chairs, to learn about what's happening in the classroom. But first, I'm excited to hand things over to Sarah Dewitt, Senior Vice President for Children's Media and Education at PBS Kids, who's joined by a very special guest.
Welcome and thank you for joining us. I wish that we could be together in person, but of course we're making the best of it. We especially want to thank the co-chairs, Representatives Castro, Clark, Cole, and Davis, and all of the members of the caucus for their commitment to promoting high quality, affordable early education for our nation's children.
Sarah? Hey, Sarah, I'm here. I, Don Quixote, am ready for the caucus.
Don Quixote, I didn't know you were joining us.
Oh, yeah. Well, I couldn't miss this. I wanted to meet all of these new pals.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here. What's happening in someplace else today?
Oh, Sarah, today is the most awesome day because my Grampy is making his super slow cooked chili for everyone. Oh, I can smell it from here.
As someone who has tasted Grampy's super slow cooked chili many times, I know how yummy it is.
Oh, yeah, but Sarah, there's one little problem.
Oh, it's super slow cooked chili, so it takes a long time to cook.
Yes! Oh, we've been waiting so long for it to be ready, and it's so hard to wait.
Waiting can be very hard. I know. I can't wait to see all of our colleagues and friends in person, hopefully really soon.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, I have a little cheer that helps me wait. Do you want to try it?
Just like you, Donkey, I will always try.
Okay. It's a little hard to follow, but it goes like this. I can wait. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I can wait. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Try it with me, Sarah.
Okay. I can wait.
I can wait.
Oh,
oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I can wait. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hey, that really helped.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hee-ha. Oh, it looks like the chili's ready. I have to go. Bye-bye, Sarah. Bye-bye, pals. oh, Sarah, I'm going to save you a bowl.
Thank you, Donkey. And bye. Thanks for being
here. You got it. Bye. Thanks for having me. Okay, how do I turn this thing off?
And that is Don Quixote, everyone. As some of you may know, Don Quixote is the granddaughter of the original Don Quixote character from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Don Quixote models life skills like perseverance, which is so important for kids, especially these days. And we hope that she and her friends inspire kids to keep trying even when the tasks get hard and face challenges with an I can do this attitude. And we're all here today because of our attitude, our shared commitment to help kids succeed in school and in life. This common goal has been core to what we do at PBS Kids for more than 5 decades. It became even more important during the past 2 years when parents and caregivers turned to us for trusted educational media and resources in record numbers during the pandemic. Parents trust that we're a safe haven for kids, and we don't take that lightly. We respect their privacy and security, and we don't regard kids as consumers. We see them as young learners. We're committed to making our content accessible to as many families across the country as possible. TV is still essential, especially for those who lack adequate broadband connectivity, but we are also focusing on reaching families and kids wherever they are by leveraging digital platforms to serve all kids, especially the underserved, who may have older technology. Making content accessible also means making sure that kids see themselves reflected in what they see. When children see positive representations of themselves in media, it can have a measurable impact on their self-esteem and on their long-term success in school and life. PBS Kids is committed to working with content creators from backgrounds that have been historically underrepresented in the children's media space. These creators tell authentic stories and reflect the broad variety of lived experiences and cultural diversity in our audience in the United States. At the heart of our PBS Kids work lies a rigorous research-based approach to developing content, working with educational advisors and testing it to ensure that it is developmentally appropriate and achieving its educational goals to support the whole child. And third-party research consistently shows that our content and supporting resources have real educational impact. Beyond STEM and literacy, our content is also rooted in the core social skills like self-awareness, self-management, resiliency, relationship skills, and more. So whether it be a transition back to daycare or preschool or something else, these are the skills that are critical, not only to children's school readiness, but also to their mental health and wellness. So as we're adjusting to the new normal, PBS Kids is here alongside you to offer support along the way. In closing, I want to emphasize the importance of the competitively awarded Ready to Learn grant from the U.S. Department of Education, which is funded annually by Congress and recently saw an increase in the omnibus. To the members of Congress, thank you for your support of this program, which is so significant. Ready to Learn supports a partnership with the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, PBS Kids, and PBS stations. This program is essential as we all work together to serve children across the country. Now, back to our friends at the First 5 Years Fund for a discussion with the co-chairs of the Bipartisan Congressional Pre-K and Child Care Caucus.
Thank you, Sarah and Donkey, and thank you to everyone at PBS for being incredible partners in this work, as well as to the National Head Start Association, who's partnered with us on this launch. I'm excited to moderate this very supportive bipartisan group of policymakers and early learning champions to discuss what high quality early learning and care means for providers, children, and families. We have remarkable brain science that tells us how critical these early years are to a child's development. We have heard often about the return on investment in programs to support children in these years. And since the pandemic, we have all seen firsthand what access to affordable quality care means for parents and their ability to go to work and our economy to be humming. For these reasons and many more, childcare and pre-K have proved to be a unifying priority for both Democratic and Republican leaders for years at all levels of government. And Congress has long followed suit, providing funding for proven effective programs like Head Start, Early Head Start, the Child Care and Development Block Grant, and innovative programs like the Preschool Development Grants, Birth Through 5, or most recently, critical stabilization dollars to support the realities families and providers were facing during the pandemic. For several Congresses, the Bipartisan Pre-K and Child Care Caucus and its co-chairs have provided a platform for members of Congress to gather, learn about these early years, and provide leadership to their colleagues in lifting up the importance of the federal programs or the federal pieces to this very complicated puzzle. I look forward to today's discussion and continuing our work together. So with that, let's get started. I'm going to first introduce formally our co-chairs, and then I'm going to lob a softball question out that I hope each of you can answer. First, we're joined by Assistant Speaker Catherine Clark, who's fought for access to affordable, high-quality early childhood education for families and children since first entering Congress, not only as a co-founder of the caucus, but in your role on the Appropriations Committee and in leadership, fighting tirelessly to secure funding increases to key federal programs, as well as critical pandemic relief funding to support child care providers when they were hit hardest. Congressman Castro is one of the founders of this caucus as well. You've long been a champion for America's youngest learners and their families, most recently leading a successful bipartisan effort to increase funding for the Preschool Development Grant Program, expanding to many more states. Congressman Davis, your support for early learning and care has been remarkable. In addition to leading a letter every year in support of increased funding for CCDBG, you also fought for critical pandemic relief funding to support childcare providers when they needed it most. And most recently, you introduced bipartisan bicameral legislation to expand early learning opportunities for children with disabilities. And although he couldn't join us today, Congressman Cole is also a founder of the Caucus and has done tremendous work to advocate for and secure investments in key early learning programs such as the Child Care Development Block Grant and Head Start. So now for the softball, and I'm going to let you go first, Assistant Speaker. As we said, you've been a strong supporter of early learning since your first day in Congress. And I would love to know what drives you to support early care and education here in Congress.
Oh, well, thank you, Sarah. And before I answer your question, I just want to thank you and everyone at the First 5 Years Fund, PBS, and National Head Start, and of course, Don Quixote for helping organize this event today, and to everyone tuning in. And a special thanks and shout out to one of my constituents, Myra Rosada, who's Senior Director for Family Child Care and Nurturing Early Education in our Boston area, and she'll be sharing her perspective on childcare later in the event. And I am thrilled to be joining you and to be part of this caucus because it's a topic so central to families, our economy, and our recovery. Early education and care is at the center of our economy. And I am so grateful to my co-chairs and my colleagues, Congressman Castro, Cole, and Davis, for helping with this critical work of this caucus. But if we want a recovery, if we want a future in which everyone can see themselves in our economy, it starts with quality, accessible, affordable early education and childcare.
Thank you. Congressman Davis, I'm gonna let you go next. What drives you to support these issues?
Well, really, Sarah, and thank you for the question. And it's really great to be joined by my good friend Catherine, and also good friend Joaquin, and we can't ever underestimate the leadership of the experienced guy of the bunch, Mr. Cole. Really, what motivates me is that this is an issue that doesn't get the attention of the 24-hour news cycle. This is an issue where Republicans and Democrats, we come together and we try to solve problems, and then we identify together, how do we address those issues? What can we do besides appropriations letters, asking for funding requests? But we also have to understand that there's some underlying policy issues that this caucus discusses on a regular basis. And then that means we have to go to work together. And in today's heightened polarizing environment, this should be a shining example of where bipartisanship is working, and it's for the benefit of our next generation. I grew up watching the PBS shows of my era in my generation. Then I watched many more when my now 25, 21, and 21-year-olds were growing up. And to see the next generation of learning, the next generation of our kids be able to continually get that consistent guidance, that's something that always motivates me.
Thank you, Congressman. Congressman Castro, what's driven you to support these issues since you started?
Well, thank you, Sarah. Thank you for moderating this and for all of your work, and to my colleagues, to Assistant Speaker Clark and Rodney and Tom. Tom's been at it a long time on these issues. Thank you for everything that y'all are doing to expand pre-K in the United States. And this should very much be a bipartisan issue. And it was in San Antonio, Texas. And when my brother was mayor in 2012, the city voted to tax itself 1/8 of a cent in order to create a pre-K program that the city would run, and it would last for 8 years. And at that time, San Antonio became the city in Texas that had the most pre-K offerings of any of the major cities in our state. And the voters in 2020 overwhelmingly reauthorized the program because it's been an incredible success and has become a national model for other pre-K programs in the country. And I think it's very apt that we're relaunching this caucus now when we're not quite out of, but have been dealing with a pandemic for 2 years. And I speak now as a father of a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old. And then my wife and I have our third and I think last child on the way in early May. That the pandemic was very rough, I think, for all students, but especially for our younger students. And I'm thinking of my son, who was 4, I guess, at the time when it started, and was trying to learn how to read at a very critical point in his own development, and watching he and his classmates, and my daughter also, but how they struggled to learn virtually, and what it means to have a very strong start in those very formative years of learning. And so expanding pre-K education is something that hopefully we can do in Congress in a bipartisan way that will make a meaningful, impactful difference in the learning and the lives of our children in this country. And I'm so glad that we're able to work on this in a bipartisan way.
Thank you, Congressman. I'm going to stick with you with the next question and ask if you have any particular goals for the caucus.
Well, my goal ultimately is I want to make sure that every 3- and 4-year-old in the country, or the parents of every 3- and 4-year-old in the country who want their kids to have full day quality pre-K, are absolutely able to do it no matter where they are in the United States, and that's fully funded, and that students are taking advantage of that as well. We've had challenges in San Antonio, even though we've had full pre-K offering, of getting the information out to parents to let them know that this is available. So that's a secondary challenge that we also face. So to me, this caucus is a way for us to promote pre-K education, not only to our constituents in our districts, but also convince other members of Congress that it's worthwhile and that we should take it on and continue to fund it for years to come.
Thank you. And Congressman Davis, similar question is you're, talking to your colleagues and what role you and I think the caucus can play in growing support amongst members who don't typically come to the table on these issues and rely on other leaders to do that.
Well, I agree with what Joaquin said, that our goal is to have every child in America have access to pre-K, have access to childcare. And really, as we come out of this pandemic and begin to treat COVID as it should be at this point as an endemic, we've got to understand and assess some of the issues that may be affecting our pre-K kids, our kids who are about ready to go into the school system. These are the things that concern me the most. I think they need to be debated when it comes to the caucus. And frankly, there are issues with speech and learning, issues coming out of this pandemic that I think we really need to put a focus on in this age group and this educational level. We can't allow federal agencies to really dumb down the standards that were expected when it comes to basic speech and learning issues and other issues as we come out of the pandemic. We should hold our kids to the same learning standards that we expect out of American pre-K, schools, and also our school systems. And I think this caucus could be a place to debate those issues.
Excellent. Assistant Speaker, we've heard a lot about what the caucus can do and the goals that you might have.
Camera just went on.
We lost.
Sorry. I'm still here though.
Okay, great. And I think the question really is, there's no lack of need. We've heard some of that highlighted here, certainly today, and we are seeing a lot of reporting on that. But what opportunities do you think lay ahead in Congress and how we can address some of these issues?
Well, I agree with everything my colleagues just said. And I think what is important is that we're in the middle of a paradigm shift. We have gone from thinking about childcare and pre-K as a private decision between parents and providers. And we are realizing with the fragility of the system that was always there, but exposed during this pandemic, that we have to treat this as every other economic infrastructure. We have to make sure that we are investing in our future and that wherever you live in this country, rural, suburban, urban, you can find affordable, accessible childcare. And I think we have seen a real change in the way the business community is approaching and appreciating childcare. They understand it is vital to recruiting and retaining the workforce that they want and making sure that women are included in that workforce. So this is a moment for this caucus, and this caucus can not only be, as Joaquin said, outreach to our districts, but it also is critical for members and their staff to understanding these issues and where the places are that we can push these policies forward. So as challenging as a time as this is for childcare, I also feel this is a moment of opportunity, and this caucus is a great vehicle for driving that change.
Thank you. We couldn't agree more, obviously, with that. You mentioned constituents. Tell us a little bit more, Assistant Speaker, about what you are hearing, the challenges and the realities that you're hearing from your constituents.
Yeah, I mean, I am hearing stories, and you're going to hear from one of my constituents a little later, that are really heartbreaking about people who, even before the pandemic, were working full-time as childcare providers, are early educators, and not able to provide for their own families on the wages they made as they were providing for our families. So this dynamic is not new, but that we have an opportunity to change that and make the investments not only in our parents and children, but also in this provider workforce that is overwhelmingly women and overwhelmingly women of color. And so this is as much an equity issue as any issue that we face. And so this is our time to look holistically at childcare, how it is a driver of our economy, and we're not going to have the recovery we want without investments in it. And it also is absolutely necessary that we look at these essential workers and make sure that they are paid a fair wage for this critical education that they are providing.
Thank you. Congressman Davis, a similar question. What are you hearing when you're home?
Well, we're hearing that the cost of everything that's part of our lives is going up, including childcare. The food that's provided at childcare facilities is going up. Therefore, we have a labor shortage at the same time. So wages have been increasing, but they're not purchasing as much. That's a big concern that I think all of us here in Washington need to come together and address in a bipartisan way. I hear concerns about access. I hear concerns about some of the different rules implemented in my home state of Illinois versus others when it comes to childcare. There's a difficulty in the workforce right now in being able to get back into the office setting and at the same time be able to address possible issues with schools or childcare facilities that may be following protocols that might be outdated. That's a big concern. I think for the most part, my families that I talk to, my constituents, especially who have kids at this pre-K level, they're yearning to get back to normal. They're yearning to get back to what used to happen prior to the pandemic. And I think we as policymakers have to use every data point we can that we've learned over the last few years to ensure that we put them on a path to get back to that normalcy. What we've experienced over 2 years, what with young kids have experienced, I could not imagine. My kids are older. I couldn't imagine them being pre-K age and going through this pandemic. But we have to put America on a path to give those families that sense of normalcy they deserve.
Thank you. Congressman Castro, similar question. What are you hearing when you're back home for your constituents?
I represent a very much a working class bread and butter district in San Antonio. And the last 2 years have just been very tough on the people in my district and on their families. And all of a sudden, people's lives change. Some people were able, obviously, to stay at home and work from home, but there were a lot of others who struggled to figure out, especially folks with young kids, who was going to take care of their kids, and also whether their kids were going to be able to effectively learn, those that were in pre-K or kindergarten, very young age. And so there is this yearning, I think, among parents, particularly of young kids this age, to make sure that they're actually learning and that they're not losing years right now, that they haven't lost 2 years in terms of gaining substantive knowledge and being prepared. I hear a lot of anxiety about that. In other words, is my child going to be okay when they get to the second grade or the third grade? Are they going to have learned what they needed to learn during this time? Because virtual learning, even though for safety reasons, obviously, we had to keep folks out of school for some time, but still, I think there was a substantive impact on folks trying to adjust to virtual learning. And so that was tough. And then just generally, even aside from the pandemic, on the issue of childcare, if people are going to be able to leave their kids somewhere at some kind of facility, whether it's daycare or versus a school, I would prefer that they leave them somewhere where they're actually learning, where they're gaining knowledge and they're preparing for their future in kindergarten and first grade and so on. And so this is a way to help give them a very strong start. And I think part of the reason that there is wide support and bipartisan support is because I think members of both parties understand that this is an investment to make sure that we're not having to pay for remedial work 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road. There's no guarantee against that, and you're going to have to do some of that. But I think that this can help cut down on that.
Thank you. You're all from Illinois to Texas to Massachusetts, hearing a lot of similar themes and issues amongst your constituents. And we truly appreciate you coming together, the caucus, and giving it a platform to be able to try to talk about some of those things. I'm going to ask one more question as part of a closing before we turn it over to our panelists, because I know we're anxious to hear from your constituents as well. And that is just that, you come from different parts of the country, you're together in Congress, you have come from different political parties, and just the importance of bipartisanship and working together to find solutions to these very critical issues and support these federal programs. So I'm going to kind of lob that one out there as a closing, and hope you, we'll start with you, Congressman Castro, because you're not on mute. We'll go to Congressman Davis and end with the Assistant Speaker.
Yeah, well, again, I want to say thank you, everybody, for being part of this relaunch. Thank you also. I think Dr. Miller Baker is going to speak later from the Edgewood Independent School District, and most of all to my colleagues for all the work that y'all are doing. I think that selling this in Congress, it shouldn't be a tough sell, because I think we've been in a period during this pandemic where people realize the value of a strong education early on in the formative years of kids' lives. And so I hope that we can build upon that to impress upon our colleagues and others how important this investment is. So thank you all for being part of this.
Well, Sarah, thank you. And look, dealing with pre-K and childcare issues, they're not the sexy issues that are making the 24-hour news cycle. They're not going to be fought about on Fox News or MSNBC. But these are crucial discussions that we have to be able to have policies in place that allow our families who have been suffering the most to get access to these important programs. I'm excited to work with Joaquin. I'm excited to work with Catherine. These are the issues that serious legislators tackle. And I'm really glad to be surrounded by some serious legislators in this caucus.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and to my colleagues. I appreciate your work, and that this is bipartisanship, because we know wherever you live in this country, this is an issue. It is critical to our economy, and it's critical in this particular time as we are emerging from great challenges of helping families save some money and reducing their costs. And that is exactly what we've been focused on. But at the same time, we know how important it is. And our partners in this caucus, our partners today, show us how critical it is that we have that quality early education and care for our kids. And it's a game changer. And we know that if we want to build the economy of the future, it starts right now with an investment in quality, affordable early care. So I'm just so grateful. I'm excited about our relaunch and what we're going to be able to do together for the future of our economy and our country and democracy. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you. We would not be here today on this Zoom if it weren't for you launching and relaunching and leading. And we look forward, and I know many of our partners out in the community do as well, in getting you lots of other members to the caucus and supporting in the work that you're doing. So thank you very much. We are going to turn it over to the panelists, but you are obviously welcome to stay. I know you're very, very busy. But we are joined by Dr. Mary Jane Miller-Baker, who's the Senior Director of Educational Operations at the Edgewood Independent School District in San Antonio, Texas, which is Congressman Castro's district. She currently oversees the district's early childhood program, as well as other support programs designed to address student challenges. We're going to hear from Dr. Miller-Baker first, and thank you for being here.
Good morning. Are we ready to go, Sarah? Is the volume okay?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity for me to share a little bit of information about the early childhood programs in the Edgewood School District, which is located in San Antonio, Texas. Edgewood has been providing full-day pre-kindergarten programs for more than 20 years to our qualifying 4-year-olds. We also currently provide full-day Head Start services for 3 and 4-year-old students. And as of last year, we were able to add early Head Start. So now our district is serving children starting as early as 6 weeks, which is just phenomenal for our community. Along the way, we've had the opportunity to learn what works well for serving this age student and the importance of providing this robust early childhood program, while at the same time, we're making sure that we are reaching as many students as possible. Edgewood, for those of you who are not familiar with our district, is a historically poverty poor, high poverty district, but we have a wonderful supportive community, which includes about 10,000 students and about 20% of them who are second language learners. So strong early childhood programs are really essential for serving our population, and they've also proven to be very effective in our community. Congressman Castro alluded a little bit to some of the support that exists here in the San Antonio area. We are fortunate in our school district and in the city of San Antonio to have a partnership that exists throughout the city to support early education. In addition, we have a partnership with our city to provide Head Start programs in 2 of our school districts. Without these 2 partnerships, we would be very hard pressed to provide the level of services that we currently provide. Fortunately, they are our partners and they are committed to supporting our students within our communities. While we for a long time have valued the impact of early childhood education, and every opportunity we get, we sing the praises of our early programs, the last 2 years have allowed us to demonstrate our impact in the most profound ways. In the past, in our school district, we've served about 1,000 children in early childhood. This is about 10% of our district enrollment. In the last 2 years, that enrollment has gone down substantially, approximately 30% less students enrolling in the program. Also during this time, we've experienced irregular school attendance by children due to pandemic-related factors. And then, of course, during the time periods when we've gone to remote instruction, if you can imagine trying to do remote instruction with a 3-year-old, that's kind of a challenge that I'm not sure anyone was prepared for, although we learned tremendous amounts along the way. So what this has resulted in is a current kindergarten class that is very different than the ones we've produced in the past. And believe me, our kindergarten teachers have recognized the difference and are letting us know what we've done well to prepare children in the past and what we'll need to continue doing for our future kids. So while many of the academic skills that one learns in kindergarten are developmental and children will learn them when they are ready to learn them, there's so many other skills developed during this time period that are critical, specifically self-regulating skills and social emotional constructs, which allow a child to really be kinder ready. These are the skills that this year's kindergarten teachers have noticed to be less present in the children who either didn't go to pre-K because their parents chose to keep them home during the pandemic, or the pre-K program they went to was not as robust as the one that we traditionally provide. Now that things are getting back to normal, we have an enhanced understanding of what we've known for years based on our pre-K data. And that is simply that pre-K works. The importance of pre-K programs that establish strong foundational skills allow students to be fully prepared for the academic rigor that's going to come. We support their social emotional needs. We help them acclimate to the school environment. And as one of the congressmen commented on, we identify those special learning needs early in order to intervene early, which is the best time. Some recent challenges that we're working hard to address include our school district's decreasing enrollment and poor school attendance. Additionally, though, the challenges of staffing all positions with quality personnel has increased. As we all know, the number of people leaving the teaching profession has also increased. Of course, when you start staffing with new people, training of the new personnel to support students of this age is much different than training at other levels, and their expertise must be developed. It's not enough to simply bring the children to school. They need to be brought into an environment in which people know the developmental strategies that are appropriate for kids at 3 and 4 years old. Because we operate within a school district, there is a strong alignment which allows fluidity for the child's future learning while addressing them in an age-appropriate way. But we all need to recognize that much of the emphasis in education is still being placed at the higher levels, while the greatest impact is made in the early years. And bridging the gap bridging that learning that a child starts in the home and bringing it into the school to continue their learning is key. We do this by providing full-day services to as many students as we can serve and actively recruiting to maximize the number of students in our schools. Our programs focus on early literacy, on providing children with experiences, on outdoor learning that promotes play in a natural environment because kids don't play enough, and social emotional skill development, and of course, ensuring that there's a strong parent connection. As a school district, one of our biggest challenges in the upcoming years will be to fill the gaps that the last 2 years have created. So while we're focusing on that all levels, all the way through our system, ensuring that early learners are in full-day programs that support their academic, health, and emotional needs and provide support to their families, including before and after school care, are key supports that every school system will need. While families are seeking to find sustainable employment, our support of their child during the school day and beyond school hours makes their opportunity for gainful employment a viable option. So thank you again for allowing me to be a part of this conversation today. Your commitment to our youngest scholars in supporting full-day academic programs for all students, including appropriate technology and access, wraparound services that provide support to students and to their families, is greatly appreciated. So thank you from Edgewood ISD.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for the leadership that you're providing. We're now going to hear from Principal Vicki Wilson. Principal Wilson has spent the last 23 years of her career at Bing Public Schools in Oklahoma, in Congressman Cole's district. and has been principal of Homer Elementary School for 16. She was selected as the Oklahoma Elementary Principal of the Year and as a National Distinguished Principal in 2020. Principal Wilson.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share my thoughts on a subject I'm passionate about, early childhood education. I am fortunate to live in the great state of Oklahoma, where in 1998, voluntary preschool became free for all 4-year-olds. Every August, I'm excited to welcome 80 to 100 preschoolers to Homer Elementary and Bing schools. The first day of pre-K is my favorite, albeit the most exhausting. It marks the beginning of an educational journey for students, a connection to resources in a school family for parents, and yet another opportunity for teachers to spark an early love for learning that can last a lifetime. Preschool is important. It's a standards-based, purposeful program that addresses all 5 developmental domains and is taught by trained professionals. Preschool bridges the gap between home and school. It's a place where children begin on equal ground regardless of ethnicity or socioeconomic status. And for ever increasing number of students, it's their first time away from home. It's a structured environment where purposeful play provides a foundation for learning and where children have a chance to explore, wonder, and discover during a stage when brain development is rapid and the environment is critical. Many of this year's preschoolers were only 2 years old when COVID caused the shift to an isolated and social distancing culture. A majority entered pre-K with little or no previous childcare experience, and many had only ever been with their nuclear family. As you would expect, the social emotional gap is greater this year than ever before, and the development of those essential skills has never been more important. Preschool programs are designed to address those skills and provide opportunities for children to make friends, listen, resolve conflicts, begin to trust others, and be assured they'll be okay even without a parent nearby. Students learn to take turns, take responsibility, and yes, to even be bored for a minute. Preschool programs play an important role in the early identification of developmental delays. Early intervention and its associated supports make all the difference in preventing or minimizing future gaps and struggles. Whether due in part to COVID-related circumstances or in general, the changes in childhood experiences, such as increased screen time and less child-adult interaction, preschoolers are coming to us with significantly less language experience. As a result, we're identifying more and more preschoolers with articulation and language delays, many of whom require speech and language services. Fortunately, the preschool day is packed full of language experiences with books, dramatic plays, songs, interactions, and themes that provide vocabulary development. These rich oral language experiences play an essential role in filling these receptive and expressive gaps and preparing students for kindergarten. Preschool classrooms also encourage the development of cognitive and motor skills. Children build cognitive skills through activities that require them to try new things, ask questions, solve problems, and simply observe the world around them. An emphasis is placed on literacy and pre-reading skills through strong phonological awareness. These skills are the greatest predictor of future reading success. Pre-math and early numeracy skills are incorporated through fun, hands-on activities, again, building a strong foundation for academic success. I'm a firm believer in the importance of preschool. During my 9 years as a kindergarten teacher, I witnessed a difference in students who attended preschool and those who didn't. I've continued to observe that in my 16 years as principal. Like me, I'm sure you've read the research on the benefits of preschool programs. Things like less achievement gaps, less need for retention later in school, increased future success in school, and increased resilience as teens and adults. We just completed our 3rd quarter last Thursday, and I had a chance to listen to our preschool teachers' reflections on student growth after 7 months with students. Here are a few of their stories. Kaylee, the baby of the family, had always been at home with Dad. She came in tears every day and was very timid, did not talk. Although very bright, she struggled with fine motor and social skills. Her pre-K teacher placed an emphasis on those social skills, especially being a good friend and encouraging others. By winter break, Kaylee was a different child, smiling, playing with friends, confident in her work. The teacher recently looked up to see who was talking so loudly and was shocked to find it was Kaylee. Although still generally quiet and reserved, Kaylee has made friends and is thriving. She tells everyone how much she loves school. Matthew had never been away from his family and had a huge social emotional skill gap. Along with many of his classmates, Matthew came to preschool with language and fine motor delays. He was almost rendered nonverbal due to his significant speech and articulation impairments. Because of early identification and consistent speech therapy at school, Matthew is on track to make a 70% improvement in his speech errors this year. His confidence, social skills, and emotional health have skyrocketed. This level of speech impairment could have been crippling if not identified until kindergarten. Joe was a young student from a bilingual home. He was silent when he entered school, and it was difficult for him to connect with others. His teacher immediately introduced Spanish and English to support him in the classroom. After the first quarter, Joe began to open up in intervention sessions and has continued to expand his English vocabulary and social skills. His teacher is happy to report that Joe is now one that sometimes even has to be reminded to hold his bubble. Joe has made many friends, loves to tell stories, and participates in class discussions. Kaylee, Matthew, and Joe are preschool success stories. They will enter kindergarten next year ready to learn. Their stories exemplify the critical role of quality early childhood education in preparing students for school and for future success. Preschool is important, perhaps more important than ever before. All children deserve that same opportunity as Kaylee, Matthew, and Joe, regardless of where they live or what their family's socioeconomic status is. They too deserve a free or affordable quality preschool program. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Wilson, and for sharing those stories and hearing about that critical complement of a bridge between the infant and toddler years and preschool and then the transition to kindergarten. We are now going to hear from Myra Rosada, the Senior Director for Family Childcare at Nursery Early Education in Assistant Speaker Clark's district. Myra has worked here at mission-driven nonprofit providing early care and education to 1,000 of Greater Boston's youngest and most vulnerable children, including infants, toddlers, preschoolers, and their families for 10 years. Myra.
Good morning. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you to all of the caucus co-chairs and to Assistant Speaker Catherine Clark and her office for allowing me the privilege of joining such a vital and impactful conversation for our nation's children, families, and overall economy. I'm truly honored. My name is Myra Rosado, a proud native of Revere, Massachusetts, and I have been within the fields of early education for 12 years. The majority of my career has been developed through nursery early education with an expertise in family childcare. I've been able to experience firsthand the importance and the need of early education through the lens of a leader within the field, as well as a parent working from home with a toddler, juggling meaningful Zoom calls such as this one at the height of the pandemic. Nursery is a mission-driven nonprofit providing early care and education to over 1,000 of Greater Boston's youngest and most vulnerable children. Nursery operates 4 early learning centers and supports a network of 140 and continuously growing family childcare home-based micro businesses. At the heart of Nursery's mission is ensuring that all children enrolled in its center-based and family childcare programs start school with the necessary tools for kindergarten success. I would like to take the time to thank Congress for the emergency relief funds that the field has received. It has aided in keeping our programs running through such difficult times and acquiring the supplies necessary to keep our children and staff safe. Although thankful, I would be remiss to not highlight the need for a long-term sustainability plan in order to support the current workforce wage equity gap, address the staffing crisis, and increase family access and affordability. To sustain such investments in our families and our educators over time, we must build a better system with increased public investment through a collective push from Congress, states, and cities alike. Early education is foundational for children, but in many ways, it is also a foundational pillar to the growth of our economy, both in terms of providing quality care to our families in order to back their reintegration into the workforce, as well as supporting micro businesses such as family childcares, which form a critical part of the childcare supply. Bringing me to my next point, and quite honestly, what I know best, family childcare. Family childcares, as previously mentioned, are in-home based state licensed programs which benefit families seeking a smaller and more intimate setting for the care of their young children. They are predominantly owned and operated by women, women of color, and in particularly Nursery's case, women of Hispanic heritage. Children are introduced to curricula, which cover the 5 developmental areas while offering linguistic and cultural diversity. FCCs are resilient and expandable when well supported. We were able to see this upon our reopening in July of 2020. Families gravitated towards family childcare, and so far we have been able to see a major growth. Today, we have fully rebounded from our pre-pandemic enrollment numbers and have added 44 new seats, as well as 25 new FCC programs, 21 of them being newly licensed. Some of the newly licensed programs are run by women who needed to be at home with their young children and found that opening up their own programs would be the perfect opportunity to both gain wages as well as be available for their young ones. The numbers tell us that families want to work, but are in need of flexible care. FCCs are unique and at times vulnerable with limited income streams. How well policymakers understand the structure of FCC can affect programs' ability to access financial support. Therefore, I urge Congress to take the time to look into this sector and how best to support it. Family child care programs are anchors in their communities, a lifeline for families with young children, and primary wage earners for their own families, which is why special attention needs to be paid to sustaining these vital child care providers. In closing, I feel that it is necessary to specifically touch on the incredible need for infant and toddler care across the field. This is currently a high-need population that unfortunately is being underserved. Infants and toddlers naturally have a much smaller licensing ratio cap than older children due to the amount of direct care and supervision they require. This makes it much more costly for families and much more difficult for programs receiving limited or no public funding to pay competitive wages to retain our educators. This stands in stark contrast to how we invest in public funds in older K-12 children. By investing in our early education workforce, we would be able to hire and fund the necessary amounts of educators in order to open up additional infant and toddler classrooms and fulfill the needs of our families. This concludes my time, and I thank you again for the opportunity to voice some of the needs of the early childhood sector, and look forward to what we can accomplish together for the betterment of our children, families, and educators nationwide. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mara. And we are going to do a quick rapid round question to everyone, Vicki, Mary Jane, and Myra. You're doing obviously incredible amounts of work, and you face so many different challenges and priorities over the course of the day. If you could leave Congress with one rose and one thorn, what do you see as the biggest hope out there in your work, and the biggest thing that you think that we need to do? And two, what's your biggest challenge that you hope they take away today and are able to hopefully help you out with? Myra, I'm going to start with you.
I would reiterate the fact that the children early ed is really the foundation of what we're building for our future, right? We want our children to be ready for K-12, and it really starts in the beginning stages. That is a time where children are most susceptible to learning and to have those basic needs, met. And we really should fund it a lot more, because it's really what's going to drive our economy and is going to drive their overall educational career. Biggest challenge right now for us particularly is staffing, and specifically around wages, the workforce. If we can invest into our staffing, we will be able to have more children in our programs and be able to help the families that are currently in need. We have the families that want the care. We just don't have the staff to fulfill the need of the families.
Principal Wilson.
Well, I think that the most exciting thing is, even with all of these challenges, I get to come every day and I get to go to classrooms and see kids smile and learn and discover and explore. So great things are happening. I don't want to, I just want to say that children amaze me. They are so capable of learning, and given the right resources, it's just amazing what they can do every day. So that's the good news, going in those classrooms every day and seeing what's happening. The challenge for me as an elementary principal with a preschool program in my school right now is helping parents realize how important it is. I think people are still a little bit hesitant to send kids, as Dr. Miller Baker explained that their enrollment had dropped. So I think increasing that enrollment, explaining to families and letting families know that this will make such a difference in their child's academic career and school readiness, that I think is my biggest challenge.
Thank you. Dr. Miller Baker.
I think what's really exciting is that the move has been towards more instead of towards less. So we are seeing more children coming to school at younger ages, which is having a profound impact. And I've tried to see over the last couple of years what positive things have happened during the pandemic. And one very positive for us is that we've been validated. We have been able to prove that what we do adds value to a whole lot of people out there. Now, what's holding us behind and what's still challenging us is we do have that pocket of children that whose parents are not ready for their children to come into school. And in our system, it's often a second language learner group, which I don't know if that's just a communication issue with the group or some outreach that we need to do. So that's one of our individual challenges. But the biggest challenge I've seen this year that I have never seen in my educational career is trying to find staff, and even finding applicants for position, face-to-face positions where you have to come into a building. We've posted a couple of remote positions and we have all the applicants we could ever want. But for actually being here in the trenches, working directly with our families and our children, and I don't know if funding, if increased pay is the solution, but I know it has to be part of the solution, because we can't attract people to leave their homes and leave their children's for the amount that are paid in this industry. And so hopefully as things open up more, we'll see more people who are invigorated to be a part of this, because like Principal Wilson said, it's a great job to be in. This is wonderful work to do. It is fulfilling. And those of us who can do it without having to worry about how much we're getting paid, we go home happy and we come to work happy, which is good for the children. But it has to be good for everybody, for the children, their family, and for all of our workers. So that's our biggie right now.
Thank you so much. And I will say that it's a unbelievable treat to be able to spend even a little bit of time with you today and hearing from you. I will leave with the roses and feel empowered to continue fighting to address your challenges, as I know many on this call will. So with that, I want to thank you for joining us. I want to especially thank our co-chairs. Without them, we wouldn't be here. Congressman Castro, Clark, Cole, and Davis. I want to thank our partners in this, the National Head Start Association, as well as PBS. If you are here today and you are staffing a member of Congress, you should have a Dear Colleague letter in the chat that will give you the information you need to sign your boss up for the caucus, which we hope you will do. Should you have any questions, I know that the offices stand ready to respond to them, as do we here at the First 5 Years Fund. So with that, we are going to end on time and be respectful of everyone's day. Again, a huge thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us, and to you all, Vicki, Myra, and Mary Jane especially. So thank you and have a great day.